I've always thought I had it all. At least that's what I told myself when I looked at my life from the outside. A beautiful girlfriend, a slick sports car, a steady job that paid the bills, and the kind of life people dream about. I was on top of the world, and everything seemed perfect. Sarah and I had been together for 3 years. It felt like the kind of relationship you read about in romance novels, perfectly timed, always on the same page. I'd always believed she was the one. I had no reason not to. We'd been through the typical ups and downs, but there was always love between us. Or so I thought. I'd drop her off at work every morning, and we'd have these long, intimate dinners on weekends, talking about our plans for the future. Everything was easy with Sarah. She was beautiful, smart, and funny. People looked at us and they saw the perfect couple. I saw it too, but there were little things that started to bother me. Things that didn't sit right, but I brushed them off. It was probably just me being paranoid. At least that's what I kept telling myself. One evening, as we sat on the couch, Sarah's phone buzzed on the coffee table. I noticed how her face lit up the second she saw the notification. It was subtle, but I couldn't ignore it. She always tried to hide her screen from me when she got messages, even though I'd never given her any reason to feel like I was checking up on her. I glanced at her, but she quickly swiped the phone away and set it down on the table. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Sarah looked at me for a split second, almost like she hadn't expected me to notice, and then gave me her usual smile. "Just work stuff. Nothing important." I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. The next week, we were at dinner with some friends. I caught her glancing at her phone again. This time, she had a little smirk on her face. It wasn't anything big, but it felt off. When she saw me looking at her, she quickly placed the phone face down on the table and looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes of hers. "You okay?" she asked a little too cheerfully. I smiled back, trying to mask my growing discomfort. "Yeah, just been thinking. About us." "About everything," she laughed, pushing her hair behind her ear. "What's there to think about? We're great, right?" I nodded again, though the gnawing feeling in my stomach wouldn't go away. Then, there were the nights when she'd come home late from work. It wasn't like her to stay out without texting me first, and whenever I asked where she'd been, she'd always give me the same answer: just out with some friends, or work ran late. But sometimes, her eyes would dart away when I asked her those questions, just a quick glance to the side like she was looking for an excuse. It wasn't enough to raise a red flag, but it was enough to make me wonder. But I didn't press. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be the boyfriend who doubted her, who accused her of things she hadn't done. I was in love with her. It felt right. She was my everything. I convinced myself that my insecurities were just that, insecurities. I told myself that I was overthinking things. I told myself that everything was fine. One night we were lying in bed together, and I kissed her forehead as I always did before we fell asleep. "I love you," I whispered, my voice soft in the dark room. She didn't say it back right away. It wasn't that she didn't love me, it was just a momentary pause before she replied. "I love you too." Her voice was a little distant, but I shrugged it off. I wasn't ready to admit to myself that something might be wrong. I wasn't ready to face the truth. I wanted everything to be perfect, like it always had been. But the nagging doubt was there, gnawing at the back of my mind, making me question things I never would have considered before. But I loved her too much. And love, I thought, could conquer anything, right? I closed my eyes that night, holding her close, hoping that everything would stay just as it had been. After all, what could possibly go wrong? It started like any other Friday night. The kind of night where everything feels normal, even perfect. Sarah and I went to our favorite restaurant. The dim lights, the soft music, the clinking of glasses, it felt familiar and safe. We laughed, joked about random things, and even talked about our future. Maybe that was the problem. I thought everything was going according to plan. I thought we were fine, that we were happy. But that night, I was wrong. After dinner, we stepped outside into the cool night air. I wrapped my arm around Sarah's shoulder as we made our way to the car. We were both a little tipsy from the wine, our steps light and carefree. She turned to me with a smile, her eyes sparkling as usual. "I had a great time tonight," she said, her voice soft but warm. "Me too," I replied, grinning back at her. "I'm glad we could spend some time together." "I've missed this." Sarah leaned in, pressing a kiss to my cheek. "Good night," she murmured, her lips brushing my skin. I watched her climb into the passenger seat, my fingers still lingering on the door. She waved at someone across the parking lot, a quick, casual wave like it was no big deal. But something about it felt off. I couldn't explain it, but the way she looked at the guy standing by the sidewalk made my stomach twist. He was tall, with messy brown hair, wearing a jacket that I hadn't seen before. I'd never seen him before. Sarah smiled at him, then, without any hesitation, she kissed him. My heart dropped to my stomach. The kiss wasn't quick. It wasn't a peck or a friendly gesture. No, it was a full, passionate kiss that lasted too long for comfort. I could see it all in the rearview mirror too clearly. The way their lips pressed together, how her hands found his neck. The way she wrapped her arms around him, pulling him closer. I sat frozen in my seat, barely able to breathe. My mind screamed, but I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. Sarah didn't even notice. She didn't see me, watching from the rearview mirror, my world crumbling. I clenched the steering wheel, my hands shaking. I tried to tell myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she just ran into an old friend and... No. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. This was no casual hello. She kissed him like she kissed me. A cold sweat broke out across my forehead. I wanted to shout, to storm out of the car, to demand answers, but I didn't. I couldn't. I felt paralyzed, trapped in my own disbelief. I stayed sitting there, staring at the two of them, my chest tight as if someone had stolen the air from my lungs. Sarah pulled away from him, laughing softly, and waved as he walked off into the night. She didn't look back at me. She didn't even check to see if I was still there. For a few moments, I just sat there. The world around me felt like it was spinning, like everything I thought I knew about us was suddenly shattered into a million pieces. I couldn't process it. I couldn't understand what had just happened. I took a shaky breath, trying to gather my thoughts. Was I overreacting? No, I couldn't be. This wasn't just some innocent mistake. This was betrayal. When she climbed back into the car, she smiled at me like nothing had happened. Her eyes were still bright, her lips still flushed from the kiss. "Ready to go?" she asked casually. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't trust myself to speak. I started the car, the engine roaring to life, and we drove in silence. The road stretched ahead of us, but I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't think about the road. All I could think about was what I had just seen. I wanted to ask her. I wanted to confront her, to demand an explanation. But I couldn't, not yet. I wasn't ready for that. I could feel her glancing at me from the side, probably wondering why I was so quiet, but she didn't ask. Instead, she fidgeted with her phone, the glow lighting up her face. I kept my eyes on the road, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The night had started so perfectly, and now it was falling apart. I could feel it. The life I thought we had, the relationship I thought I understood, everything was slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to stop it. Finally, she broke the silence. "You're being awfully quiet," she said, her voice soft but almost unsure. I didn't know how to answer her. How could I? How could I even begin to explain what was going through my mind? The words were stuck in my throat. I wanted to scream, but instead, all I said was, "I'm just tired. Tired." That was the lie I told her. The lie I told myself, but it didn't change the truth. And the truth was, everything had just changed. I couldn't sit there and let it slide. I'd seen enough, heard enough. My hands were still shaking as I parked the car outside her apartment, the engine's hum barely registering in my mind. I should have said something, anything, back at the restaurant, but I hadn't. I was too stunned, too paralyzed by the image of her kissing him. Now, though, I couldn't hold it in any longer. As soon as I turned off the car and the silence hung between us, I glanced at her. She was fiddling with her phone, clearly avoiding my gaze. "Sarah," I said, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. "Who was that guy?" Her fingers stilled on the phone. She looked up at me, her face unreadable for a moment, and then her lips curved into a forced smile. "Just a friend." I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me. "A friend?" My voice was colder now, and I couldn't keep the disbelief out of it. "A friend who you kiss like that? In front of me?" Her smile faltered, but she quickly covered it. "It wasn't anything, okay?" she said, her tone dismissive. You're overreacting. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the walls closing in around me. Overreacting? I repeated, my voice rising. Sarah, you kissed him. Right in front of me. How is that nothing? She shifted in her seat, her fingers once again playing with the strap of her purse. It was just a harmless kiss. It doesn't mean anything. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I could feel my anger rising to a point where I thought I might lose control. A harmless kiss? I leaned forward, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. You think I'm stupid? You think I didn't see it? You were practically making out with him. She sighed, her eyes avoiding mine now, focusing on the window instead. You're being dramatic. It wasn't a big deal. Why can't you just trust me? Trust you? I shot back, my voice louder now, full of raw emotion. How can I trust you after that? How can I believe anything you say when you're lying to me like this? Her eyes finally met mine, and for a brief moment I saw something. Guilt, maybe? Or was it just fear? She blinked, her lower lip trembling slightly. I'm not lying, she said softly, almost pleading. Please don't make this worse. It was nothing. Just a moment. It meant nothing. I could feel my chest tightening. You're not even sorry, are you? You're not sorry for what you did. You just want me to accept it like it's nothing. Don't say that, she whispered, her voice breaking. You're making me feel terrible. The vulnerability in her voice hit me harder than I expected. For a moment, I hesitated. My anger faltered, and I almost gave in. I wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that it was just some mistake, some slip-up. But the pain, the betrayal, I couldn't let it go that easily. I couldn't forget the image of her lips on his, the way she held him, the way she didn't even care that I was watching. I shook my head. No, Sarah, this isn't just a mistake. This is a choice. You chose to kiss him. You didn't even think about me. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said quickly, almost too quickly. It was stupid. I regret it. I swear I do. But please don't let this ruin everything we have. I looked at her, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to believe her, to forgive her, to pretend like this was just some unfortunate slip. But another part of me, maybe the smarter part, knew better. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. You're saying it was a mistake, right? A one-time thing? She nodded vigorously. Yes, exactly. It meant nothing. I swear it was a mistake. Please don't leave me over this, I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear my heart out and throw it at her. But instead I sat there staring at her, searching her face for some sign that this was the truth, that she wasn't lying to me. For a long moment we sat in silence. I thought about everything we'd been through.
3 years?
So many plans, so many promises. I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want to throw everything away. I'm not saying I don't want to be with you, I said slowly, my voice hoarse. I'm just saying I can't keep pretending like nothing happened. You have to understand how much this hurts. She reached out, her hand trembling as she touched my arm. I get it, I do. I swear I'll make it right. Just don't leave me. Don't walk away from us. I closed my eyes, fighting the storm inside me. Was I really willing to forgive her for this? Was I ready to let it go, to move on like nothing had changed? I didn't know. But what I did know was that I couldn't walk away from her just yet. I wasn't ready to let go of everything we'd built. I'm not walking away, I said, finally meeting her eyes. But you need to prove to me that I can trust you again. And if you can't, if you lie to me again, then this is over. Sarah nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'll prove it to you. I will. But deep down I wasn't sure if I believed her. Maybe I was just too afraid to face the truth. It's funny how time doesn't heal wounds. It just makes them harder to ignore. Days passed, but every second felt heavier than the last. The kiss I saw, the way it burned into my mind, replayed itself over and over. I tried to move past it. I tried to act like everything was fine, like Sarah hadn't shattered the trust we built over 3 years. But I couldn't. I kept waiting for the things I had once seen in her, the laughter, the warmth, the affection, to return. But they never did. Instead, I noticed things. Little things that shouldn't have bothered me, but did. Her phone buzzed late at night, and I watched her smile at it before quickly locking it with a soft laugh. When I asked about it, she'd just say, "Nothing important," or "Just work stuff." But her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Not fully, she became distant. More distracted. and I stupidly convinced myself that maybe it was just me being paranoid. But deep down I knew. My gut twisted every time I saw her texting, every time she forgot her phone at home. One night, after another hollow dinner where we barely spoke, I decided I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't sit back and let her lie to me. Not again. I followed her. I told myself it was just to ease the gnawing doubt. That maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was just a fool imagining things. I parked my car a block away from her office and waited until she left work.
She didn't see me?
She was too busy checking her phone, laughing at something. She stepped into her car, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt that she was going somewhere she shouldn't be. I followed her. My heart hammered in my chest as we drove through the city. I tried to calm myself, tried to tell myself that this was all for peace of mind. But I wasn't fooling anyone, not even myself. I couldn't shake the sick feeling in my stomach like I already knew what was coming. She pulled into a parking lot. Not her apartment. Not a store. No, this was a secluded spot, a quiet corner of the city I didn't recognize. And then I saw him, the same guy, the one she'd kissed. My stomach dropped. The air left my lungs and I was frozen in place, too shocked to move. They met at the car laughing, sharing some quiet joke. And then, just like before, she kissed him. The same kiss. Slow, deliberate, and full of something that wasn't for me. I didn't move. I didn't confront them. I watched, heart shattered all over again. My breath caught in my throat as I saw the way she looked at him, like she hadn't looked at me in months. The kiss, the way her body leaned into his, it was real. And it was something I couldn't deny. She was cheating on me. The truth slammed into me like a punch to the gut. I could feel my world crumbling around me. It was like everything I had believed, everything I had trusted was just gone. And yet, I still couldn't bring myself to confront her. I stayed hidden in the shadows, watching them until they got into his car. She waved goodbye with a smile that made my blood run cold. A smile I hadn't seen in weeks, but now I knew it wasn't for me. I didn't speak to her. I didn't follow them any longer. I just drove home. The drive felt endless, and I could barely keep my focus. The whole way back, I couldn't stop seeing her face, the way she kissed him, the way she'd laughed with him like nothing mattered. I didn't know how I got home. All I could think about was that kiss, and how I wasn't enough. I wasn't even worth the truth. I had to face it now. She wasn't the woman I thought she was. And I wasn't the man she wanted anymore. I could feel my chest tightening, my heart sinking deeper with each passing minute, and yet I was still there. Still stuck in this endless loop of pain and betrayal, unable to escape. As I stood there staring at my empty apartment, I didn't know what to do. What could I do? Everything had fallen apart, and I had let it happen. I had ignored the signs, let myself be lulled into a false sense of security. I wasn't strong enough to confront her before, and now I was too weak to do anything about it. Was this it? Was I really just going to let her destroy everything we had? I shook my head, the question lingering in the air, unanswered. One thing was clear. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I had to make a choice, but in that moment, standing there alone, I had no idea what that choice would be. I don't know how long I stood there, my hands shaking, staring at the door. I was so close to snapping, so close to completely losing control. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like the air itself was suffocating me. Every moment that passed made the pain in my chest worse. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't let her lie to me any longer. The betrayal had crushed me. It wasn't just about the kiss. It was everything. The secrecy, the lies, the way she'd let it all go on behind my back, thinking I wouldn't notice. That's what hurt the most. I walked into the living room where Sarah was sitting on the couch. She looked up at me, her eyes wide like she had no idea what was coming. But I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep acting like everything was fine. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, my voice tight. She glanced up at me, confusion clouding her face. "What's wrong?" I let out a shaky breath, trying to hold it together. I couldn't keep the pain hidden anymore. "You know what's wrong," I replied, my voice shaking despite myself. "I know what's been going on. The guy, the one you've been meeting behind my back." Her eyes went wide, and she stood up. "What are you talking about? You're just overreacting." "No," I said, cutting her off. "I'm not overreacting. I saw it. I saw you." With him, again. Her face flushed with panic, but she quickly recovered. "It's not what you think. You're making a big deal out of nothing." She stepped toward me, but I took a step back, shaking my head. No, you don't get it, Sarah, I said, my words sharp. This isn't nothing. This is everything. You've been lying to me. You've been seeing him behind my back and you think I wouldn't notice? I wasn't doing anything wrong. Her voice cracked as she stepped closer again, reaching for me. You don't understand. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I stepped away, a sharp pain shooting through my chest. You're right. I don't understand. I don't understand how someone I loved so much could betray me like this. My voice cracked and I could feel the anger rising up inside me, threatening to spill over. I trusted you, Sarah. I trusted you with everything. And you just threw it all away. She opened her mouth to say something, but I couldn't hear it anymore. I couldn't hear her excuses or her half-truths. My mind was already made up. I can't do this anymore, I said, the words coming out more coldly than I intended. I'm done. Her face crumpled. What? No, you can't. You can't just leave me like this. Please listen to me, you're overreacting. But I couldn't listen. I was too far gone. The moment I saw her with him, when I saw the way she kissed him, like I didn't even matter, it broke me. And now, standing in front of her, I realized I was already gone. I grabbed my bag, slinging it over my shoulder. I'm leaving. This is over. Stop, she cried, her voice breaking. Don't leave me. I love you, please. She reached out, grabbing my arm, but I jerked away. No, I said, my voice tight with emotion. You don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have done this. Her tears started to fall then, but they didn't move me. They didn't change anything. I couldn't look at her the same way again. You don't get it, do you? I asked, shaking my head. You don't get that I can't trust you anymore. You don't get that you've destroyed everything we had. She stared at me in disbelief, and for a moment, I thought maybe she was going to fight for us. But then she just crumbled. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, but her apology didn't matter. It couldn't fix what she had done. I couldn't fix this. I don't care anymore, I said, my voice flat. It's too late. I turned and walked toward the door, not looking back. Not once. I had to get out. I had to leave before the rage or the sadness completely consumed me. The door slammed behind me, and as I stepped into the cold night air, I felt like I was leaving a part of myself behind. My heart ached with every step I took. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. But I knew I couldn't stay. I drove. I don't know for how long. The streets blurred as I fought the tears that burned in my eyes. The ache in my chest was unbearable, and I felt like I was suffocating. She had betrayed me. And now I was left with nothing. I didn't know how to handle the emptiness, the betrayal, the pain. It was like a weight pressing down on my chest, and no matter how hard I tried to shake it off, it wouldn't go away. But I had made my choice. I had to walk away. I had no other option. Even though the pain was unbearable, I knew that walking away was the only way I could start to heal. The apartment was small, barely enough room for me and all the junk I had packed up in a hurried frenzy. The walls felt cold and empty, like they were mocking me. I spent the first few days barely moving, sitting in silence, staring at the walls and scrolling through the messages on my phone, most of them unread. It felt like my world had come to a screeching halt, and I couldn't find the strength to start it up again. I was alone. Completely alone. I used to love the quiet, but now it felt suffocating. My thoughts kept going back to her, to Sarah. Every place I used to go, every corner I used to pass held a memory of her. It was like there was no escaping her, no escaping the life I had thought was mine. But as the days dragged on, something changed. I got tired of feeling sorry for myself. I couldn't keep lying in bed, letting everything slip through my fingers. The pain didn't go away, but I realized I had to keep going. I had to do something, so I threw myself into work. I buried myself in projects, meetings, anything to keep my mind busy. At first it was like walking through fog, but slowly, the fog started to clear. I felt like I was waking up from a long, dark dream. I even started going out again. Small steps, but steps nonetheless. Friends started reaching out, and though I didn't feel like going, I made myself. I needed the distraction. Man, it's good to see you out, Mark, one of my co-workers, said as he clapped me on the back one night. We've missed you at the bar. I nodded, not really feeling it, but I didn't want to be that guy who shut everyone out. Yeah, it's been a minute, I said, forcing a smile. The bar was loud, a little too loud. People were laughing, talking, and I felt like an outsider, like I didn't belong here anymore. But I pushed through it, sitting down with my drink and trying to pretend that I was fine. After a while, the noise faded into the background, and I started to relax. I let myself laugh again. I hadn't realized how much I had missed the feeling of being carefree. But then it happened. My phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up without thinking. Sarah's name lit up the screen. For a second, my heart froze. I didn't even know why she was calling. What could she possibly want from me now? I stared at her name, my fingers hovering over the screen. I should have just ignored it, should have just let it go. But the old habit kicked in, the one where I always answered her calls. I pressed the green button before I could stop myself. Hello? My voice felt strained, like I was holding on to something I wasn't ready to let go of. Hey, it's me, she said, her voice sounding unsure. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to steady myself. What do you want? I asked, the words more biting than I intended. She hesitated. I just wanted to check on you. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I wanted to scream, to tell her to go away and never contact me again, but instead, I just let out a breath. Why? Because I'm sorry. I miss you, okay? Her words hit me like a slap, but I refused to let myself feel the rush of emotions that came with it. You miss me? I repeated, the bitterness creeping into my voice. Is that why you cheated on me? I didn't mean for it to happen, she said quickly. It was a mistake, I swear. I made a huge mistake. I closed my eyes. Sarah, stop. You don't get to do this. You don't get to just come back into my life whenever it's convenient for you. There was silence on the other end of the line. Okay, she said, her voice small. I don't know what else to say. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. You don't have to say anything. I've already heard it all before. I felt a little guilty, but I couldn't afford to fall back into the same trap. I couldn't let her hurt me again. I'm sorry, she whispered, but I didn't reply. I ended the call and stared at the screen for a moment, the weight of her words pressing down on me. Even though I had moved into this apartment, even though I had tried to rebuild my life, I was still haunted by her. I realized I wasn't as over it as I thought I was. I wanted to move on, to put her behind me, but every time I let myself think I was free, something pulled me back. Memories. Her voice. That damn phone call. The night went on, but my mind couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness. I had to let go of her for real this time, but it was harder than I thought. It was strange how life had a way of coming full circle, how you could feel like you were moving on, only for something to come back and smack you in the face. I'd been trying to rebuild myself, to get past everything that had happened with Sarah, but somehow I kept hearing whispers. At first, it was a passing comment at work. Then I overheard a conversation at the bar one night. People were talking about her. Sarah's not doing too well these days, Mark had said, lowering his voice. I hear her new guy bailed on her. Dropped her like a hot potato when things got tough. I didn't know why, but the news hit me like a jolt of electricity. I didn't want to care. I told myself that I was over her, that I had moved on, but a part of me, no matter how much I hated to admit it, felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. I thought back to the way she had acted, the way she had thrown me away for someone else, thinking he would be the better option. She had been so sure of herself, so certain that I wasn't enough for her. But now, her life was falling apart. I leaned against the bar, swirling the drink in my hand, trying to ignore the knot that was forming in my stomach. So, what happened exactly? I asked, trying to sound casual, like I didn't care. Mark took a sip of his beer. Apparently, he wasn't ready for the drama. She thought he was some sort of knight in shining armor, but the guy wasn't having it when things got real. No one's surprised, I couldn't help it. I let out a bitter laugh. Sounds like karma to me. Mark gave me a knowing look. Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of funny, right? Funny, it should have been. I should have been enjoying it, celebrating the fact that she was getting what she deserved. But instead, all I could feel was this hollow emptiness inside. I didn't feel satisfaction or revenge. I didn't feel anything except a reminder of how much I'd been hurt. I thought about Sarah, how she must have felt when he left her. How she must have realized she wasn't as irreplaceable as she'd believed. But the reality was I didn't care. Not really. Not anymore. What I cared about, what bothered me, was how she still had the power to affect me. It was like she still had a hold on me even from a distance. I'd moved out of our apartment, I'd stopped texting her, I'd even deleted her number. But hearing about her falling apart, it made me feel like I was still tied to her in some way. The next time I saw her name flash on my phone, I didn't pick up. I didn't respond. It was an impulse, something that had become second nature. And yet, part of me still longed to know what she had to say, to see if she was going to apologize or ask for another chance. But I resisted. After a few days, I heard more rumors. Sarah was spiraling. She was angry, bitter, and still couldn't seem to understand why her life wasn't going the way she planned. I overheard one of her old friends talking about how Sarah was blaming everyone but herself. She was blaming me, blaming him, blaming everyone around her except herself, and that made me realize something. The thing that hurt the most wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't the cheating or the lies or the fact that she left me for someone else. What hurt was the realization that Sarah would never take responsibility for what she'd done. She would never admit that she was the reason for the mess in our lives. She would never own up to how selfish she had been. I thought I'd feel relief from knowing that her perfect little world was coming undone. But instead, I just felt a dull ache. The truth was, revenge didn't make anything better. It didn't bring me peace. It didn't heal the hole she'd left in me. I was standing on the edge of this mess, watching her fall apart from a distance, and yet I felt like I was the one who was still stuck in the past. I wasn't free of her. I wasn't free of the pain she caused me. She had hurt me, yes. But now it was almost like I was hurting myself by holding on to all that anger, all that resentment. I needed to move on. I needed to let go of her and the idea of her. But that wasn't going to happen overnight. The next time I saw her, if I saw her, I wasn't going to feel like this. I wasn't going to let her affect me. I was going to let her fall. And I was going to walk away from the wreckage, for good. For now, I would let the world do its work. Sarah would get hers, and maybe, just maybe, I would finally find a way to stop caring. The truth is, moving on isn't a one-time decision. It's a long, painful process, like a wound that starts to heal, but you're always reminded of it with every breath. The worst part wasn't confronting Sarah. It wasn't hearing her excuses or watching her life crumble. No, the hardest part of all was forgiving myself. For so long I had blamed her. I had hated her for what she did, for how she threw me away so easily, for how she lied and manipulated her way through our relationship. But in time I realized something. She didn't destroy me. I did that. I let her in. I gave her too much trust, too much of myself. I stayed far too long, ignoring all the signs, all the red flags, but I couldn't change that now. I couldn't go back and undo the past. All I could do was forgive myself. And that wasn't easy. It started with a conversation I had with Matt one night at the bar. I hadn't really talked to anyone about all of this, not in the way I needed to. But Matt had a way of listening without judging. He was like that, a quiet kind of guy who never pushed, never forced you to talk. But when I finally did, the words came spilling out of me like a flood. I don't even know why I stayed with her for so long, I said, staring into my drink, feeling the burn of the whiskey on my throat. I knew she was changing, but I kept convincing myself that things would get better, that it was just a phase. Matt looked at me, his brow furrowed in thought. Maybe you just wanted to believe that it would. It's easy to get stuck in something, even if it's bad for you. We all do it. I'm so stupid, I muttered. How could I have been so blind? You weren't stupid, he said, leaning back in his chair. You were human. You trusted her. You loved her. There's nothing wrong with that. But I didn't know if I could see it that way. I felt stupid. I felt weak. How could I have been so gullible? How could I have ignored the things I saw, the gut feeling telling me that something wasn't right? I should have seen the signs, I said, shaking my head. I should have walked away the moment I found out. But I didn't. I stayed and let her hurt me. Matt didn't say anything for a long time. And then finally he spoke, his voice low. You know, the problem with staying too long in something toxic is that you start losing sight of who you are. You start blaming yourself for everything. You start thinking you're the problem. But you're not. I didn't know if I believed him, but I wanted to. I wanted to believe that there was something good in me still, despite everything that had happened. The next few weeks were hard. Harder than I thought they would be. I kept thinking about Sarah, about the way she smiled, the way she used to look at me like I was everything she needed. I kept seeing her face in my mind, and every time I did, it was like I was falling back into that dark pit of confusion and doubt. It was hard to let go of the person I thought I knew, the person I had loved. One night I ran into her. It was at the same cafe where we used to go all the time. I didn't expect to see her, but there she was, sitting by herself at a table, staring out the window. Her hair was different, shorter now, and there was a tiredness in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. For a moment, I thought about walking up to her. I thought about asking her why she did what she did, why she threw everything away. But then I stopped myself. I wasn't that guy anymore. I wasn't the one who needed answers from her. I was the one who needed answers from myself. I turned away and walked out of the cafe, the doorbell ringing softly behind me. In the weeks that followed, I stopped looking for answers in her. I stopped expecting apologies or closure or some kind of sign that she regretted what she'd done. Instead, I focused on what mattered. I focused on moving forward. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about being angry anymore. It was about accepting that things had happened the way they did, and that wasn't something I could control. I started running again. It was something I used to do when I needed to clear my head. I would run for hours, pushing myself until my body was too exhausted to think about anything else. I didn't care about the time, the distance, or how fast I was going. I just ran. It was during one of those runs that I finally felt it, the weight lifting. The tightness in my chest that had been there for so long finally started to ease up. I felt free. When I got back to my apartment that day, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. For the first time in a long time, I didn't see the broken guy who had been betrayed. I saw someone else, someone stronger. Someone who had learned from the past, who had taken that pain and used it to grow. It wasn't about forgetting. I would never forget what happened. I would never forget her. But I didn't have to carry it with me forever. I didn't have to keep holding on to the pain. Moving on wasn't about erasing the past. It was about making peace with it. It was about letting go of the anger and the hurt and finding a way to live without it weighing me down. And for the first time, I finally felt like I was ready to move forward. Ready to let go of her and ready to find the real me. I didn't need her. I didn't need the past. All I needed was to keep moving. And I would. A year had passed. A year since everything with Sarah fell apart. The man I used to be, the guy who would have given anyone the benefit of the doubt, who trusted too easily, who wore his heart on his sleeve, he didn't exist anymore. And honestly, I was glad. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I just wasn't the same person. I'd changed, and for the better. I had learned the hard way that real love isn't about losing yourself for someone else. It's about being strong enough to respect yourself first. I had finally come to understand that. The phone call with Matt last week made me realize just how far I'd come. "You sound different," he said when I picked up. "I don't know, man. You don't seem so defeated anymore." I smiled to myself even though he couldn't see it. I think that's a good thing, right? Yeah, it's a good thing. But don't get all deep and wise on me. I'm not ready for that. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. "Don't worry, I'm still the same guy, just less of an idiot." "I'll believe it when I see it," Matt teased. We both laughed, but underneath the jokes, I could feel the change. I wasn't chasing after something I couldn't have anymore. I wasn't holding on to old wounds or playing the victim. I was moving forward for real. And that's when I met Lily. It happened when I least expected it, at the most random moment. I was at a coffee shop sitting alone, trying to work on some freelance project. The place was buzzing with energy, the soft hum of conversations and clinking cups filling the air. I was halfway through my latte when she walked in. She wasn't like Sarah. She wasn't the type to demand attention with her looks or her energy. But there was something about her. She looked calm, centered, almost like she belonged to a different world altogether. I couldn't explain it, but she caught my eye. When she ordered, the barista gave her a smile that seemed genuine, not forced. She smiled back and I caught myself staring. Then to my surprise, she caught me staring. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, walking up to my table. I froze for a second, unsure of what to say. Yeah, just, lost in thought." She laughed, softly, sitting down across from me without waiting for an invitation. Good place to get lost in. They make a pretty mean cappuccino here. I found myself laughing, not because she was being funny, but because I hadn't laughed like this in a long time. It was real. It felt easy. Yeah, it's my second one today, I admitted, rubbing the back of my neck awkwardly. Maybe you're addicted, she teased, but her eyes were kind and there was a certain warmth in her tone that made me feel safe. I might be, I said. But I don't think it's the coffee. She raised an eyebrow. Then what? Guess it's the company, I said, smiling. Her smile was soft, genuine, and unlike anything I had seen in a long time. It wasn't like Sarah's fake warmth, the kind that was used to hide the lies. This was different. This felt real. So what's your name? She asked after a beat, taking a sip of her coffee. Jake, I said, my heart doing something funny in my chest. And you are? Lily. There was something about her name, something about her presence, that made the world feel a little more at ease. We ended up talking for hours. I told her about my work, my life, how I'd been trying to get back to myself after everything, and she listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. She just listened. By the time the cafe started closing, I didn't want to leave. I should go, she said, standing up. But it was nice talking to you, Jake. Yeah, I said, standing too, reluctant to let the moment slip away. It was really nice. I don't usually talk like this, you know? Not to strangers, she smiled again. Maybe we're not strangers anymore. Something shifted in me then. Maybe it was the warmth in her voice, or the way she made me feel like I wasn't broken anymore. For the first time in a long time, I realized that I wasn't afraid to try again. I'm glad I met you, Lily, I said, feeling my heart shift. Me too, she said, her smile reaching her eyes. I'll see you around? I nodded, watching her walk out of the cafe. I stood there for a long time, my mind racing, my heart oddly calm. I couldn't stop thinking about her, about how she made me feel seen and heard. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared to let someone else in. I wasn't ready for everything, but I was ready for this. I was ready to take things slow, to let myself heal, and to let someone else be a part of that healing. Lily wasn't like Sarah. She didn't come with baggage or false promises. She just came with herself, and that was more than enough. For the first time in a long time, I felt the possibility of love again. I hadn't heard from Sarah in months. After everything, I didn't think I'd ever hear from her again. But then one morning, her name popped up on my phone. My stomach sank as soon as I saw it, like my body had some kind of automatic response to her that I couldn't shake. I stared at the screen for a long time before I tapped on the message. Jake, can we talk? I need to apologize. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I know I messed up. I hurt you. I need your forgiveness. I wasn't even sure why she was reaching out now. She had her chance, and I'd given her every opportunity to come clean, to do the right thing. I guess life had a way of catching up with people. Still, I wasn't angry. I didn't feel anything like I thought I would. I felt tired. I stared at the screen a bit longer, the silence of my apartment pressing in on me. I didn't respond immediately. The last time I had reached out to her, it was all lies and broken promises, and I didn't want to go down that road again. But after a few hours, I knew what I had to do. I needed closure. Not for her, but for me. I needed to let go of the last piece of that chapter. I typed out my response. Sarah, I've thought about it, and I don't hate you anymore. I'm not angry, but I don't think I need your forgiveness. What I needed back then was honesty. What I need now is peace. Thank you for the lesson, but I'm done. I've moved on. I hit send and let out a breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding. I sat back, waiting for the storm of emotions that I thought would hit me. But instead, there was nothing, just quiet. When her reply came through, it was simple. Almost too simple. I'm sorry, Jake. I hope you find happiness. I read it once, twice, and then put my phone down. It was over. I was finally done. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city. It had been such a long road, but I'd made it. I had let go of everything that had weighed me down, and I could finally breathe without feeling the chains of the past. But it wasn't just about the breakup anymore. It wasn't about Sarah or what she had done. It was about me. It was about what I had learned along the way, how I had learned to respect myself, how I had learned that the only way forward was to let go of what no longer served me. My phone buzzed again, but this time, I didn't feel the rush to look. I knew who it was. It was Lily. I'd been seeing her for a few months now, and things were different this time. There was no rushing, no forced expectations, just a quiet, steady connection. The kind I had never had with Sarah. Lily treated me differently. She didn't try to change me. She didn't need me to be something I wasn't. She just saw me, really saw me, and that was all I needed. We were taking it slow, and it felt right. I answered her message with a smile. She was inviting me to dinner, asking if I'd like to join her later that evening. Sure, looking forward to it. I typed back, keeping it simple. But as I put my phone down, something inside me clicked. It wasn't just about moving on anymore. It wasn't just about closing the door on the past. It was about opening the door to something real. Something healthy. Something that wasn't about filling a void or finding validation in someone else. It was about building something step by step, together. I wasn't the same person I was before I met Sarah, and that was okay. I wasn't defined by my pain anymore. I wasn't defined by my mistakes or my heartbreak. I was defined by what I'd learned. I had learned how to love myself first, how to stand on my own, how to forgive, not for anyone else, but for me. The future was mine to shape, and this time, I was building it on my terms. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't settling. I was letting life unfold as it should, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace.